Good morning, everyone. Thank you very much for taking time to join us for today's Executive Insights by Mediacorp webinar, Women in Business. And today it's all about prioritizing your well being for enhanced performance. My name is Jean Danker from Class 85. I'm going to be your host today for the next hour. So thank you very much for joining us. Now, today's session is the last of this three-part Women in Business series, and our speakers are going to share the vital connection between mental, physical and emotional health and workplace productivity. We all know how important that is, from like stress management techniques to self care practices. We're going to learn how investing in well being can lead to improved focus and creativity and overall performance as well. So, I want to introduce our speakers to you. First, we have Rebecca Lim, founder of Back to Basics. Now, Rebecca is a Duke Health trained health and well being coach, and she supports clients on their personal transformation journeys towards achieving their health goals, living their best lives. And her approach to health and wellness is pretty simple, going back to basics like nutrition and exercise and sleep, stress resilience, social connections, focusing on a sense of purpose. She's also a former yoga teacher and avid cyclist, and she incorporates these passions into her practice as well. Before pivoting to health and wellness, she's a marketing and communications leader with more than 20 years of experience in media, the private sector, and finance and fintech and government as well. So, welcome, Rebecca. Thank you very much for joining us. Next, we have Abbey Tan, founder of Abbey Jewellery. Now, Abbey, of course, stands for ABY, also stands for About You Jewelry, and was first founded by Abigail years after her interest in jewelry making that led her to graduate with a diploma in precious metals and gemology. So, this November actually marks the first anniversary of Abbey Jewelry. Abbey, of course, is also a content creator and is in the music scene and is also a fantastic singer. Thank you very much for joining us, Abby. Really appreciate you here. And last but certainly not least, we got on our panel Alicia Thong, COO of AKA Asia. Now, Alicia joined the communications industry for the allure of creating memorable campaigns. With more than 15 years in the agency world, Alicia has worked with many global and local brands to deliver effective communications programs. Now, at AKA Asia, Alicia has been part of the team's growth from 4 to 60 and is proud to work with talented communicators who share a passion for bringing great ideas to life. As a mother of two young children, Alicia spends as much time planning media events as she does weekend activities that are kid approved. My goodness, she's everywhere doing everything. So thank you all for being here today. Before we dive in, we'll have a quick poll as well, just to understand about your challenges in prioritizing well-being at work. So as you can see there, this pop up on your screen. Do select the option that best applies to you. Okay, what is the biggest challenge that you face in prioritizing your well-being? Of time due to busy schedules, societal expectations and gender roles, work related stress and burnout, balancing caregiving responsibilities, or lack of support from employees. We'll love for you to pick one. And just to get a sense of what everyone is feeling about this right now, I think we'll get our poll results in a minute. Thanks very much for getting involved as well. And we'll see how everyone is doing. By the way, if you do have questions, do feel free to put it in the chat, and we will try to get to them towards the end of it as well, of the session. Yeah? Okay. All right, let's see the results. 42% of you have picked lack of time due to busy schedules, followed by balancing caregiving responsibilities. And then we've got work-related stress and burnout and societal expectations, gender roles. Lack of support from employees coming in at 0. Okay, that's very good to know. Thank you for that. I think let's kick off, shall we? Let's get into it, ladies. All right. We're gonna start with Rebecca on this one. Rebecca, how do you define well-being in the context of like professional life, particularly for women in business?
So rather than give like a technical definition, what I would like to share is a framework that was developed by Duke Health and Wellbeing, which is the program that I train with. as a health coach. And this program essentially is one of the leading health coaching programs in the US, being in the Duke Health system. It really is about thinking of health and well-being from a holistic mindset. So if you look at this visual, right in the center is it's us, you, me, everyone. And it is centered on mindful awareness. And the whole idea of mindful awareness is about being in the present. Because if you're in the present, you don't just tune in better to what's around you, stresses, responsibilities, but we're better able to tune into our own needs and our own responses to these external stresses. So it really is centered about on us as individuals, with the community as an extension of ourselves. So the outer ring is the community. And by community, it could mean our families, our friends, and of course, in this context of women in professional lives, our colleagues, our work environment. And then centered around these with the flowers, the petals are the core components of our physical environment, our nutrition and lifestyle, our, mental and emotional well-being, sense of fulfillment and purpose, and physical activity, as well as sleep and rest, which is really underrated. We've not talked enough about this. And essentially, I think when we talk about our work, we tend to think about tasks and stresses, but very often work gives us a sense of fulfillment and purpose too. So I'll just like to share this more holistic framework of thinking about our health and well-being in a professional context as well as personal context.
Thank you, Rebecca. Let's move on with our next question, and this one is for Alicia as well. What are some common challenges women face in prioritizing their well-being while striving for success in their careers?
Hi, Jean. And thanks for sharing that, Rebecca. I feel like they should teach it in school and everyone should have like a handout of it. It's a really, really good visual reminder. Challenges. Okay, so I think, from personal experience, like I hold a full-time job, I work in a consultancy and it's a client servicing role, but I also am a mother of two young kids. They're 2 and 5. It's a really chaotic age. So I think time, is a big challenge. And because it is a client servicing sort of like setting that I'm in, I don't really have like, there may not be down times in the year. So Christmas is when people wind down, but if there are Christmas campaigns, then we're going to be busy. So that's the weekday, and then the weekends can be, even more punishing. Young children can be very difficult clients, so that's that. And then I think the balance as well, right? Like mom guilt is, another challenge. You want to try and do it all. With my eldest, when she was a baby, I, did all of the school pickups. I wanted to plan all of the meals, but now with two kids, you just realize, okay, I've just got to give myself some grace, and you can't be there to do everything all of the time. And I think just a last point on that is, just the idea of mental load. It's quite real as well. Maybe you're not, doing all of the big things all of the time, but then as a parent, you need to think about the play date, that's coming up, the other kid's birthday party that you have to get a present for. And I think, yeah, you need to find time to be able to do all of that and to think the things and to make the plans after work. So I think that that's kind of what a lot of us are facing right now in terms of prioritizing mental health and balancing everything.
That's amazing. I mean, just hearing you talk about it, I feel also like exhausted.
You find a
um,
rhythm, I guess.
yeah, I guess you do get into it. Abby, do share about for you from your point of view, how is that like, just sort of balancing everything?
Hi.
Hi.
Right, yeah. Well, the challenge for me is, well, basically managing myself because I'm self-employed, kinda, yeah. Also running a business, you kind of have to kind of force yourself to be disciplined. And yeah, so I guess the challenge for me is that sometimes like projects and everything pile on and I get super busy, everything is in waves. It's harder to have a proper schedule, like air quotes. Also and also there's a bit of guilt in the quieter months if I'm not really working as hard. So I guess the challenge for me is to find a balance and to also manage these busy periods when it comes in waves and whatnot. Yeah, that's basically me because I just hit my 30s. So I believe it's like a young hustling age, and I'm still working towards like creating a firm path for my career. Yeah.
Super nice. Did you just get married or
Yeah, I
you
did. No
congratulations?
kids
Yeah.
yet.
Oh, look at you.
Yeah.
Oh my gosh. Okay. So it's gonna get busier, I think, for sure. You're gonna
Yeah,
yeah.
I'll make time.
Um all right. Let's move right along. I do believe actually we're sort of ready for our next poll. I think we're ready for that actually. Should we get into that? For everyone watching us, we do have a poll happening. And this one is all about which of the following do you think is like the most effective way to manage work related stress? So have a look at this. Is it deep breathing exercises that help you, taking short breaks throughout the day, setting boundaries, saying no when needed, talking to a mentor or a colleague, exercise or physical activity, practicing mindfulness, which is the most effective way? I think they're all quite important and they all have each of their uses, but which is the most effective way for you? Yeah. Rebecca, which would you pick if you had to pick one?
Oh, if I had to pick one, it's definitely taking physical activity breaks.
Okay.
Mm.
What about for you, Alicia? What would you pick?
It's between physical activity, and just talking to someone. So I think physical, like I used to do a lot of yoga as well, and it just helps to have, an hour where you are not thinking about anything outside of why is my arm so slippery, or please let's not fall in front of everybody. And for 1 hour
Yeah.
you're like, oh, like not bothered about the email. And talking to someone just gives perspective, I think, and it's probably a personality type thing as well. Like, I can be the kind of person that could overthink. So if I
Yep.
get it out and I, can accept another point of view, then that's always been helpful for me.
Yeah. What about you, Abby, very quickly?
I definitely setting boundaries. I had problems with that in my early adulthood. That like serious problems. So that one, yes.
We understand that. Okay, so looking at the results so far from everyone, yeah, exercise or physical activity tops it. Okay, that's the most effective way to manage work stress for you, followed by taking short breaks throughout the day. And then we've got setting boundaries, saying no when needed, and practicing mindfulness as well. All right, thank you very much for that. It's just nice to have an understanding. By the way, if you have any questions at all, you can feel free to put it into our Q&A box. But yeah, let's move on with the next one about, talking about work-related stress and the strategies that women can use to handle work-related stress effectively. Alicia, would you like to share about that?
Yeah, so I guess, we covered it a little bit already. So I had it distilled into like people, place, and prep. So people is talking, getting some perspective, and of course, talking to the right people. You want it to be constructive and you don't want it to end up swirling into a pit of negativity. That's that. And place is, yeah, it's just finding some time, if it's yoga or just kind of doing something else that will take your mind off things. I recently allowed myself the occasional massage as like a, you know what, I just need to go do it, and I think it's going to be worth the investment, and I'll feel better for it. And prep, I think is more relevant to like just finding a way to organize your day too, and breaking down things that might seem like quite big tasks into manageable chunks. So if it's something that seems difficult, is it needing to lean on someone else's expertise and going and having that chat? If you've done something new, then do you want to ask for feedback to see how you can improve, as opposed to second guessing what your performance might have been? So I think, yeah, mindfulness and well-being at work, especially if it's busy for me, it just translates into better time management, things that are achievable, setting those goals, and then, taking those things off of your to-do list. And I think, just off the back of this as well, at my company, we do offer mental health days off, and they're meant to be taken as sick days. So just in recognition of how sometimes you can be overwhelmed and maybe you are not sick, but you do just need that time to recover from the day so that you can come back refreshed. So I guess that's about setting boundaries as well. So yeah, these are some of the things that, have worked for me. Oh, you're muted.
Thank you so much, Alicia. I'm muted because renovations have started weirdly on upstairs. I'm like, what is going on? Right in the middle of a webinar. Well, that's live. What you gonna do? Anyway, Rebecca, we're gonna move on to you now. Let's talk about the self-care practices women must embrace to maintain wellness. I mean, tell us about what you think about that.
Yeah, so I'm going to just frame my answer from two perspectives. Like one is a health coach. I think what Alicia and Abby have shared a lot is about us taking responsibility from a personal angle on maintaining our wellness and our health in personally and professionally in the workplace. But many of us here, I mean, I'm sure in the audience we have founders, entrepreneurs, and leaders and managers. I think we can also frame the thinking from the perspective of a team and a workplace setting. Very often, if you have cohesive teams, you have colleagues who are supportive, and the team works well together, it really helps a lot in alleviating the work stresses that we face as individuals. And that's speaking from my experience in management for several years before I ditched the corporate suit and became a health coach. We don't stress that often enough, the human relationships in workplaces and how that can really help in terms of both physically supporting you, as well as friends and also as sharing workload, but also mentally, if you know that, it's going to be okay because I've got my team to fall back on. I think the level of stress and the ability to handle stress will be a lot better. So when we talk about self-care, I talked a little bit about what I do for myself. I need to move. So I always started my day with physical activity. I used to run, I cycle, do some yoga before I get in and face all the many crises that will hit me in a single day. And because I used to do crisis communications, so that's nonstop. And that moment in the morning, physical activity, that 1 hour that I go running or cycling or doing yoga is really precious. And I try not to sacrifice it for anything. If I have to write a press statement while I'm running or cycling, I do that. I still move.
Wow, I love that. I mean,
That's a very high
prioritizing that.
level.
It's really awesome. Abby, tell us about some self-care practices that you do for yourself for your well-being.
Oh, for me, it's pretty simple because, unlike Alicia, who is a mom, she needs to run after her kids at age 2 and 5. For me, all I need is good sleep, and thankfully, at this point of time in my life, I can give myself good 8 to 10 hours of sleep. And then I also really like, for me, my expressing gratitude every day is very important, because if I don't, I tend to get in my head a lot. And I feel that constantly being thankful and practicing gratitude is really like up there for my well-being. Yeah. Yeah. I
Thank
also
you.
recommend you getting sun, because that really helps.
Thank you, Abby. What about for you, Alicia?
Self-care practices. So for me, I think, it's about what I've learned this year is just to like be kind to myself, and also that to accept that, I can be a work in progress. So my whole like motto this year is small and sustainable. I did fall off, the exercise bandwagon because I felt like that was a little bit too much to pack into my day. So for me now, it's, making sure I have water first thing in the morning. I do red light therapy, at some point in the day. I do 5 minutes, on the brochure, it says 15 minutes is optimal, but, sometimes 15 minutes can feel like a long time if the kids are running amok around me. So I do 5 minutes. I do supplements as well. And it just kind of feels nice that you've done a little something that could make tomorrow a little bit better. And on the supplements point, like I'm quite late to the game, but I was surfing on iHerb the other day and realized that you can buy things to help with stress response and emotional balance. So I don't know, it's something, they're all herbal, and it's a space that I'm looking at. I would love the idea of journaling and practicing mindfulness more as well. It's kind of like in the future for me, but I think for me it's a work in progress, and I will get there with milestones in place.
I mean, I love that. I think we're all sort of a work in progress anyway. I mean, I think we all have like things that we do, but then every day we're just trying to get better as well. And Abby, I can see that, definitely for your well being is your dog that is in front of you right now.
Yes,
Like,
sorry, I was so distracted in answering earlier as he was digging through my stuff. Yeah, definitely helps me.
oh my gosh,
Mind.
look at
So cute.
that face.
Can't really see his eyes.
That's your therapist.
Yes, he is. Dog therapy is
Oh, I
so
love
important.
that. What's his or her name?
His name is Charlie. Highly
Okay.
recommend if you have the time or like extra hands to take care of a little fur baby. It's dopamine, like free.
Absolutely, 100%. I totally agree. Let's chat a little bit about prioritizing time to complete more to-do tasks in a day. I feel like that list is never ending for all of us, and particularly women in general. We always have like, I don't know, for me anyway, I have like loads of things, and then the second I tick off stuff, I realize that I'm adding stuff to it anyway. It's quite hard. Rebecca, let us know what you think about that. You can kick us off.
Yeah, I can totally connect with that, Jean, that never-ending list of things to do. So, I mean, Abby and Alicia shared earlier about, their priorities in life and different stages in life. So I'm 52 and my kids are like 19 and 22. So I've gone through all the stages from, young career woman to mom with all the mom guilt. Alicia, you're not alone there. And then to empty nester. So there really is a never-ending list of things to do. And you know what? I have news for the younger ladies in this audience. It just gets more. It doesn't get less. You think it's easier as the kids get older? No, there are lots more things to worry about all the way. And even now when they're both in the UK, I'm like, are you warm enough? Every day I'm like Asian mom texting them. It I don't think it's so much about doing more, but it's about being more efficient and doing things more meaningfully. You can never complete everything on that list. I mean, so I try to reframe my thinking. Often we are not clear about what is important and what is a priority. So we think everything is a priority, but in actual fact, everything on that list is important to us. But not everything has to be a priority. But that requires asking ourselves some really hard questions. And, I go through like all the really difficult questions. What's the worst thing that can happen if I don't do this like right now? Or someone's going to yell at me. Yeah, so what? But no, nothing's bad's going to happen. So after I go through that, surprisingly, there are actually really very few things that you have to do now. But it does take a lot of self-discipline, and it does take being quite hard and cold about cutting off some things, saying no, drawing the boundaries, and also saying no in a way that makes the other people who are depending on us feel assured that it's not that you're not ignoring their priorities, because their priority might not be your priority, but you will just have to handle it in a way that respects everybody's needs. I don't know if I'm making sense, but
No, you're totally making sense. Yeah, but all that just also is like it takes a certain finesse to do it. Like it's not easy to do that as well, right?
yeah, I've gone through my struggles, and I think we all will, but everyone's journey is different. So it is about finding your own space.
Yeah, absolutely. Abby, tell us a little bit about that. If you can struggle with, was it Charlie?
Sorry. Sorry.
Yeah, do tell us about how you prioritize your
Um,
time and complete more tasks in a day.
I see. I do this thing called time blocking. I learned it online actually. It was quite a useful tip where you really set aside time on your calendar. Of course, being like a self-employed person, and certain things just randomly do come up. So I do leave a little bit of room for flexibility, but other than that, my time is mostly set in my calendar in blocks. So like today I have a webinar with fellow panelists and Jean Danker, and then like later I have like a block of 2 hours to run my errands. So I really like set it, and I try not to deviate from whatever that I've set. Yeah, that really helps me. Calendar is the best friend. And I also have a little bit of ADHD. So I know that I can't focus at a task for too long. And that's why this time blocking also really helps me. Yeah.
I hear a lot about time blocking these days from a lot of different people. And, they also tell me things like, apart from like work that you should time block for, you should also time block, moments like maybe even 15 minutes for like, if you're really stressed out, for a good cry. So you say, okay, for the next 15 minutes, I'm just going to let it all out. And then in 15 minutes, I'm just going to stop, and then I'll function throughout the day. I do think that actually it's very good to sort of schedule even your emotions just to like let everything out throughout the day. I don't know whether you ladies feel about that. Feel the same way about that. Alicia, what do you think?
I love the phrase schedule your emotions. I'm gonna use it now. We just moved into like a new big corporate office, and there are these phone booths, and everyone was joking that, yeah, this is where you go to, have a good cry or a good shout, and where I will be scheduling my emotions. But it's so true. Would not be able to live without my calendar, and it's more helpful for everything to be on one calendar. So I went through a period where my husband kept sending me invites to my personal calendar for like, we gotta do this with the kids, we gotta go do that, and I was like, just send it to my work calendar because I'm not looking at two. And the other thing I learned is that, usually you put meetings in your calendar, but then that leaves very little time to do like work in the day, when you need to sit down and be focused. So time blocking, I started then, to block time for myself to actually do work. Like, you may need me, or you can schedule the meeting at another time because now I'm gonna be focusing on a specific task. So that's how. And I think when you're more junior, when you've just started out, it's a little bit difficult. Your time is going to be a bit more determined by the priorities that other people set for you. But yeah, I think that as you progress, in your career, you will have a little bit more control over how you manage that in your day. I think the Eisenhower matrix is also useful. I don't know if you guys have come across that, but it's a tool that you can look up online. It's 4 quadrants, and it helps you think about, if a task is important and urgent, or important or urgent, or if it's something that you should do now, or you should do later, or you should delegate. So quite helpful to just visually see things that way, because like you guys mentioned, the to-do lists, they get longer and longer, and then when you start on the list again the next day, you start at the top, and then by the end of the day you realize there's still like the 4 things at the bottom or in the middle that you've not touched, and now you're going to add like a few more things. So yeah, it's funny how like some things feel commonsensical, but sometimes if you had like a framework and visual prompts, it just makes it easier for you to organize your day, and to think about how you want to spend your time.
Yeah. Let's go back to talk a little bit about what Abby mentioned earlier in the poll regarding boundaries. How do you set boundaries and say no in certain instances? Do share, Abby. Tell us how.
Yeah, going back to the time blocking, I think that really helps because in the past, if you don't really set it um in the calendar, sometimes you just say yes to whatever that comes, or you forget. So for me, I used to be quite a people pleaser, especially earlier in the day, when no one really knows who you are in the business and stuff, and you kind of have to work your way up. I used to say yes to every single project that came. I kept thinking it was good for my portfolio or and etc. So I took everything really, and I'm not only managing things like social media, but I have my gigs too. So I really took on everything, and I felt so miserable. I felt like I wasn't sure what I was doing or if I was even succeeding in what I was doing, because I was doing the bare minimum every single time. I couldn't give my best. So I think setting these boundaries and saying no to certain projects, they really help you to do even better in the projects that you do say yes to. And then also this time blocking thing really helped make it even easier, because I could see that, oh, at this part of my day, I have this. So it makes it easier for me to say, I'm so sorry, I'm occupied at this point of time. Maybe I could do later, or if really I have to reject it entirely, I will reject it entirely. Yeah, and that helped a lot. It's easier to say no these days.
That's good. I think that's a practice. I think most women are kind of like find it hard to set boundaries and to say no. You know, we kind of like want to just, yeah, kind of naturally people pleasers because like nurturing and maternal in a way, right? That's, I think, a work in progress. I don't know how it's done, to be honest. I'm still I'm still working on it. But Rebecca, let's go to you and let's talk about routines. I mean, for you, is sticking to a routine helpful in keeping things balanced for you?
Yes, for me it is, and certainly with the time blocking, I've used that as well. And I think many of us who work in organizations, big organizations especially, find it useful because of this concept of the open calendar, right? So people are like booking your time left, right, and center, and suddenly your day is jam-packed. So time blocking is a way of being disciplined, putting time in your calendar to do things that you want to do. And I've also used it not just for my professional life. So I schedule in time with my children because especially when they were growing older and they became like grouchy teenagers, it's really hard to get them to go out with me and to do things with me. So I time block them. Like every weekend I learned to cycle because I wanted to spend time with my son like 3 years ago. So then, I booked him. I said, this weekend we are cycling at this time. And I booked my daughter. This weekend we're going hiking in Bukit Timah at this time. So I have used that, but just to reframe that a little bit, routines and schedules work for people who like structure, right? And it works when you feel like you need to fend off some requests from external parties and just save time for yourself. But for people who find it difficult to deal with structure and schedules, that can become more stressful. It can become like yet another demand and to do in your life. I have 10 different things to do today. I'm not going to get to all of them, even if they're in my calendar. So I think the important thing is to understand what works for us as individuals. Some people just need a little bit more flexibility in between things, time and space. Some people need that structure. So essentially, I go back to the framework that I shared at the beginning of the session, which is the Duke Health framework. You are at the center of this, be mindfully aware of, tune into yourself, what works for you and what doesn't work for you. And a lot of times, the self-talk is really important. It's not about I failed to do the 10 things that I'm supposed to do today, but hey, I got to 5 of them and I did those really well. And I will deal with the other 5 tomorrow because they are not die must do today type. Yeah.
Thanks for that, Rebecca. Let's talk about organizations and how organizations can create like a supportive environment for health and well-being. Alicia, would you like to jump in on that?
Yeah, so I think that, there's like a full spectrum of initiatives that organizations will roll out. Some give vouchers, some have like a mental well-being budget, some provide access to counseling. So I think it's incredibly varied. It just depends on where you are. But I do feel that, there are some really simple everyday actions, that people can do, leaders and people in teams can do to embed well-being in the culture a little bit more. And it's like things like, so over in my company at AKA, we encourage people to take longer, more restorative breaks. 2 weeks is a good amount of time. And let's face it, like if you're gone for a 3-day holiday, like you're probably still checking emails on the first or second day, and it takes a while to really switch off. Because some people are like, oh, I'm just going to maximize, the public holiday. I'll just do like a Monday here or Friday here. But actually, it might be, more disruptive and, harder for you to really switch off. So that's one. I feel, it's also things like, and if your colleagues are on holiday, then, you should really be prudent about contacting them. So we're quite protective of, if someone's away, then, really try and solve the problem yourself. We don't want to be the kind of place where you can't take off, you're overseas, but people are pinging you left, right, center. Another point is collaborating flexibly with parents. So we do have quite a lot of young moms in the company, and this just means that they may leave earlier to do pickups from school, but then they come back online later. And there's a very nice, supportive environment, and no one feels like, oh, if I need to take off early, that I'm being judged for it. Or, as long as I come back online, I remain accountable and I'm communicative and deliver that, that's at the end of the day what counts. And I think it's an extension of that too, just building into the overall culture. We generally discourage people from, working really late or sending emails or, attending to clients when it's way past after hours. So, some things can be policy initiatives, but I guess these are, all the different ways that, like in a softer way, you can make sure that you're valuing people and you are communicating and signaling the importance of taking care of people's well-being.
Thank you, Alicia. Rebecca, would you like to jump on that one on how you think organizations can create a supportive environment for health and well-being?
Yeah, I mean, certainly, as Alicia said, I mean, now there is a lot more awareness, and I think many organizations have different ways of supporting their staff for mental health as well as physical health. But, there are still some unique to women issues that are not talked about enough. Postpartum depression, menopause. These are topics that, previously were deemed almost taboo to be talked about, especially in the professional environment. And only recently are we hearing more of such topics being discussed as a objectively health-related issue, right? And not a women issue. So I think having those open conversations and becoming more aware, and certainly the leaders are the ones that need to set the tone and the examples. One thing we do need to be cautious about, though, is while it's important to advocate for more support for women in the workplace, we don't want it to also have a spotlight effect. And then it becomes like a negative thing, and many women will feel fearful of seeking help because they don't want to be called out for needing that help and support. So it's about a fine balance. And I think the leaders can set the example by showing that it's okay to seek help when you need the help. It's okay to be vulnerable. It doesn't make you less effective as a professional. And, it really is about also leaders building that culture, that supportive culture that I talked about earlier, where you feel like your team has your back. That you're not going to be suffering in your career because you are speaking out about needing extra support for a particular health or physical health or mental health issue.
Yeah. Thank you for that, Rebecca. Abby, would you like to jump in on that one as well?
Well, as someone who's not in an organization, but I do work closely with some, and also both my parents are in organizations as well. I think it really helps to look out for one another, like Rebecca said. Looking outwards really helps because sometimes it's not all about you. And then helping someone can be a great fuel, or like assisting someone. Of course, not when your hands are full, but whenever you can, it's always great to look outwards and look out for people around you.
Yeah, absolutely, 100%. Rebecca, do you have any experience in guiding companies in this aspect, making sure that women are not perceived negatively, and just what steps companies can do?
I think going back to what we talked about earlier, it's about the leaders. and how the leaders set the tone. And essentially, leader is not just like CEO and management, but also, down to middle management and teams. And I think there are two questions in the Q&A about new mothers returning to work. And certainly I can empathize with that because, I did that like 20 years ago. So I think back then there were fewer support initiatives for new moms coming back to work. I think now it's pretty open. I mean, there's maternity leave and there's covering, and there are many ways you can manage going back to work. I recall, just to tell a little story, I recall a manager I had from a long time ago who told me when I was a new mom, like, back in my time, we didn't have maternity leave, You're also lucky. And I went straight back to work. And then I didn't reply that way at that point in time, but my thinking was, well, back in your time, you didn't have 300 emails waiting for you while you're in the delivery room, right? So it's all about managers and leaders and colleagues setting the tone. And I think what Abby said about looking out for one another is really important. But essentially for the new moms who are going back to work, be kind to yourself. Know that you can't do it all on your own. And it's okay to reach out for help. I think different families will have different support structures. Some families can lean on their in-laws or their parents, to support with the child caring. But essentially, do not put yourself last. When I had my first child, a friend came to visit, and then he brought me a bouquet of flowers. And he says, when people visit new moms, they bring gifts for the babies. I thought it's important to bring a gift for the new mom to tell her that she is being cared for. So care for yourself and do not put yourself last. If you need to take an hour off to go do your nails just so that you feel better, do that. Have someone else help you with the childcare, and be realistic about what you can achieve going back to work after a maternity break. And if possible, when you're preparing for that maternity break, talk to your colleagues and your bosses to try to set up covering a person to cover you, a teammate to help you and, to work together so that the workload does not become overwhelming. But most importantly, do not be afraid to seek that support.
That is a really good friend that you have there that brought you the flowers. I hope you guys are still friends. That's awesome. Alicia, would you like to jump in on that, on how you do it as well, being a
Yeah.
newish mom?
Yeah. So, for when I got pregnant with my first one and I told my then bosses, I think at that point maternity leave was just 16 weeks, and they were really, really nice in saying, I know you're not gonna ask for it, but we think that you should take like more time off. 16 weeks is about 4 months, and that's when like the babies go through this thing called sleep regression. So maybe you've had 3 months of figuring out like babyhood, and then all of a sudden the sleep goes out the window, and you're not sleeping as much. It's quite a cruel time to be going back to work. So I had the luxury of that, which is great. What I did do coming back as well, and this is also something we offer to returning moms, is for them to phase in slowly. So you're not like finishing maternity leave and then coming back and doing 5 days a week. We usually say just come in for 2 days a week, for like a month or two. Don't take on anything too heavy. You just kind of want to get back in the rhythm of finding a way to get out of the house, figuring out that rhythm of like, okay, maybe you need to do daycare, or yeah, just being there, I guess, and getting used to being back around people, having adult conversations. So taking it slow is one. I cannot agree more with what Rebecca has said. Like, you just need to accept that it takes time to feel like everything's normal again, and it can take like 4 months, 5 months. There are a lot of adjustments that you have to make within your schedule, and with the way that people work with you as well. So I think it's again super individual, but I would recommend to see if you can phase coming back in so that it doesn't feel like such a shock. And then, yeah, to communicate your needs with the people who work around you as well, so that they understand where you're coming from. this is the culture that we've set up. So I think it works very well for us, and people tend to be very understanding of what new moms need.
Absolutely. I think new moms, I don't know how moms do it. I mean, you guys make it look, women just sort of like tend to make all of it look so easy on the outside, but I know inside it's like a total internal struggle, isn't it?
Like the duck, very calm on the water, but like petting
It's like that.
Maddie underneath.
Exactly, that's like the best analogy. Let's talk a little bit about to Abby. You mentioned about practicing gratitude earlier. To someone, I mean, how does someone who's new to that, go about it, or how do you go about sort of practicing
Ah,
gratitude, and that's effective for you?
I see. For me, it sounds a little cheesy, but I did start this journey with very intentionally asking myself, what are three things I'm thankful for today when I woke up? Because it wasn't like I just wanted to create some sort of a habit and get the ball rolling. So that's how I started. But then that didn't last very long, to be honest. So for me, just in general, I try to find the good in everything, as cheesy as it sounds as well. Like, for example, if let me think. Yeah, for example, if there's this job that I thought I was gonna get, but I didn't, it actually went to someone else, like I'll say to myself, I'm thankful for even being considered in the first place. In the past, I'll just be like, oh, it must be me, I suck or something like that. Like it was on more on the negative side, but now I like to find a lot of the good in everything, actually. Even the food I eat, I was like, oh, I get to eat this today, I'm so thankful. It's a little bit funny, but if you keep doing it, it's I won't call it delulu. The young kids are saying like people are very delusional now. No, but I just think you have to be very grateful with a lot of things that are happening in your life. And if you keep looking at all these good things, then you don't really see a lot of you don't focus on the bad. Yeah.
No, 100%. I know. Also think it's like just reframing like things
Yes.
that come into your life, right?
Yes.
I think that personally that's what I'm trying to do right now when I feel I've had a very challenging time. I reframe the narrative in my head, and it really actually makes a big difference how you see it, how you see things
Right.
happening. Like for example, these renovations that are happening right now, right smack in the middle of my webinar that I'm hosting. I'm like, they don't come on like yesterday or the day before, but today, of course, right smack at 10 o'clock it starts. I mean, like, how do I reframe this? Well, I got a roof over my head. It's okay. It's okay. Rebecca, would you like to add about well, how you do it? I mean, how do you practice gratitude? I'm sure you do on a big scale.
Yeah, I mean, a lot of gratitude, learning to be grateful for things, for me personally, came through my yoga practice, but perhaps to address this from a professional context, as someone who's been a leader and a manager, I usually try to impart to the teams I work with, in a professional context, practicing gratitude has a lot to do with the growth mindset. So if you have a growth mindset and you're able to look at everything that you encounter in the workplace, be it a challenging project, a nasty client, not meeting your sales target, if you look at everything with a growth mindset, what can I learn from this? Then it goes hand in hand with gratitude. Because if we're able to look at the lessons rather than beat ourselves up over the failures or not meeting targets or not getting our to-do list done, then we realize that we have been given this opportunity to learn and to grow. And that essentially in itself is gratitude. That's gratitude in workplace. And then years later, maybe not right now, years later, I'm grateful to that manager who told me back in her time there was no maternity leave, because then she helped me to learn a lot about the kind of manager I want to be when I'm leading a team with women who have just come back from maternity leave or who needs to go on maternity leave. How I should communicate with them so that they don't feel like, so are you saying that I shouldn't go on maternity leave? So it's all about that, right? It's about learning, and it's about all the opportunities that we're being given in life, rather than the challenges that are beating us down and making it hard to go through the day. So again, that's also reframing, like what you said, Jean.
Yeah, absolutely. Thank you for that, Rebecca. Appreciate that. One last question before we close, and I'm going to direct this to Alicia. How can women in mid career navigate perceptions of reduced availability or commitment after returning from maternity leave? Could you share on
Ooh.
that a bit?
Navigate perceptions. Oh, okay. Yeah, no, I can imagine that this is, definitely a concern for people coming back. What I have found has helped, personally, and, with some of the other, my colleagues as well, is I think being able to communicate, your needs early. If you're working on a project with someone, it's inevitable that your schedules are going to be different from your teammates. But if you can give advance notice, so I think that this means you front load, the planning and the thinking. You think about what the day looks like or what the week looks like. You identify where the restrictions might be, and you share this with the team, so it's less of a, oh, she's gone off again, or like she's not picked it up, but more of a, I know that I will be able to do this, and I'm going to value add more on this piece, so that's what I'm going to do. This other stuff is going to be challenging for me for these reasons. How can we delegate it? So it's also about framing it as an opportunity to problem solve with your team, rather than saying, I can't, I need this, and then I'm off. So I think that that's like a realistic and balanced way of approaching it. So you're in control more of the narrative and of how people experience working with you, rather than feeling like you're a victim of the circumstance and that people just need to pick up around you. Let me see if there's any. I feel like, yeah, I kind of think that's the main thing. I think it is also a reality. This idea that the perception of reduced availability or commitment, it's not a perception. It's true. You have other big, important priorities in your life now, and I think it's helping people respect that, but also talking to them about it in a way that makes it feel like it's not an imposition on them. It's always easier said than done, like theoretically, and maybe you're working with very young people who have no children and they're like very hustler. So that's again very very case by case, but I think just, yeah, helping to plan it and to set that tone of knowing that you're actually in control, that to me will really help.
Yeah,
Hope
thank
that
you
was
for that.
useful.
Yeah, very much so, Alicia. Thank you very much. Before we wrap, just would love your thoughts, panel. Like, what's one key takeaway on well-being that you hope that our participants watching today can embrace to enhance their work life? Abby, you want to start?
Mm. Well, I hope whatever we shared today kind of helped. For me, just from my own experience, I feel like this whole thing with well-being is like a whole journey. Um, like it changes at different stages of life. For me, right now, I can get that 8 to 10 hours of sleep, but when I do become a mom one day, I'm not sure I can prioritize that. Like just for an example, and also, like I was really hard on myself um earlier on, for example, like time blocking, right? I was so overzealous, and I scheduled like maybe 7 things in a day, and I couldn't complete all the tasks like Rebecca said, and I felt so unmotivated over time. So what worked for me is that like now I would schedule like 3 main things, and that's like the fullest I would schedule my day for now. If I have the energy or time for anything else, I'll consider doing that in my spare time. So I think it really pays to not be so hard on yourself when you're figuring all these things out and what works for you. And yeah, so it's a journey. That's my takeaway from all these years, and also from this chat with panel. Yeah.
All right. Yeah, Alicia, would you like to jump in?
Yeah, so my takeaway is that I think context is I'm very much a millennial, and my growing up, I learned that my self-worth would actually be defined by what I do for work, and how much I earn and how I can provide for my family. So this idea of prioritizing well-being, being intentional about it, has been a journey for now, for me. And I think you get to a point where there really are so many things that you have to balance, and suddenly you need to be well enough not just to deliver for your teams but also for your family. You have to just be in a better place, and I guess you get what you put in, right? So my takeaway is it's not just like a by the way anymore. It's not like in the past where if you're not sick, you're able, you can get out the door, everything should be fine. I think it's recognizing that well-being should be something that you prioritize, you think about, you plan for, and you sit with yourself and you try to understand like what actually works for me. um, and also tied to that point, there are just so many things you can do now to practice well-being, so it's important not to be overwhelmed by it. Do you want to go for classes, do you want to go for therapy? Like, there's just a multitude of things, and it's going to be a journey for everyone to figure out what makes the most impact for them, and to craft, like, I guess, a strategy around that.
Yeah. Rebecca, would you like to close us out?
Yeah, sure. Just very quickly, I noticed a question in the Q&A about, what if I don't like my management, I don't like my colleagues, and nobody to talk to at work. I think in terms of talking about your needs, your mental, emotional well-being needs, you can always seek an external party, someone close to you that you can talk to. But in terms of work, there is no running away from talking to your manager and your colleagues. My advice would be to be very objective and very focused on talking about tasks, expectations, and deliverables, and clarify those, right? And that hopefully can help reduce some of the stresses that you're feeling at work about what's expected of you and what you're supposed to deliver. And just to close up very quickly, I think there's a common thread here that we've all been talking about. One is don't be too hard on yourself. And I think the other is look at your career and your professional life as a long journey. You have a long road ahead of you, and there's going to be many stages that you're going to go through. So essentially ask yourself, what is it that gives you fulfillment and purpose in your life? And yeah, you may love your job, you don't love what's around you, then what can you do about it? What is it that you love about your job? What satisfaction does your job give you? Versus what satisfaction you get out of being a mom and, being a friend. And because again, going back to that Duke framework, we are not just one entity in one place. There is a holistic framework to look at. And all these factors will affect how you feel about your personal health and well-being.
Wow, that's lovely. I'm going to think about all that. Thank you so much. What a fruitful session it's been, panel. Thank you. Thank you. And really, I hope you've also gathered some practical advice on well being and how it really does play a crucial role in enhancing performance at work. Small changes do make a difference. I guess we can all, sort of do something small today and not stress ourselves out, but just like take baby steps as well. So thank you very much to our incredible speakers, Rebecca, Abby, and Alicia. Thank you very much for sharing your experiences and your insights. We appreciated all the wisdom that we got today. I'd like to thank everyone as well for watching us this morning and for coming to Executive Insights by Mediacorp as well. We really hope to see you again soon. All right. Have a great, good day ahead. Thank you very much, everyone. Thank you.
Thanks, everyone.